I still remember the night I almost died in that abandoned hospital. It was supposed to be a quick exploration with my friend Mark. We had heard rumors about a nurse who disappeared years ago and how her spirit still wandered those dark halls. I never believed in ghosts until that night. We were not alone. Parshuram came with us. He was the local guy who knew shortcuts, and he insisted we bring Ram, a tractor driver who'd driven past that hospital for years. Ram laughed and said, "Ghosts don't bother tractors," and that little joke followed us into the dark. We arrived just after midnight. The hospital sat like a sleeping animal, windows broken, a faded sign swinging in the wind. The tractor's engine died with a cough. For a moment, the world felt perfectly still. Too still. We stepped inside. The air hit us like cold water. It felt thick, like someone had closed the doors behind us and pressed the silence down. Each step echoed. The beam of Ram's flashlight cut a narrow path, but the darkness beyond it seemed to swallow the light. Mark tried to lighten things with a joke. Parshuram muttered a small prayer. Ram brushed a cobweb from the tractor key he'd carried in his pocket, half laughing, half nervous. I told myself it was the sound of age and wind. But even as I said it, I could hear something else. Faint breathing, very close, like someone standing just behind us. We moved toward the emergency wing. In the doorway, we found rusted beds and broken monitors, papers crumpled like dead leaves. A wheelchair rocked slightly in the corner, though there was no wind. I froze. Parshuram nudged my shoulder and whispered, "Don't tell me you see that too." His voice was small. Then from deep in the corridor we heard it. A woman crying, soft, broken, full of pain. The sound wrapped around us like cold fingers. I wanted to turn and run. Mark looked pale. Even Ram's laugh died. Something pulled me forward. Not my feet, but the space around me. Like gravity had a different rule here. Our hearts beat loud in our ears. We crept toward the sound. Each step felt louder than the last. As we neared, the crying stopped. Suddenly there was only silence. A thick, pressing silence. A door slammed behind us. The noise was sharp enough to sting. Mark shouted my name, but his words seemed to travel through water. They sounded distant and muffled. A light flickered down the hall. Under that failing light, she stood, a nurse at the end of the corridor. Her uniform hung torn and gray. Her head tilted slowly. Her eyes were completely black. No white, no pupils. Just two dark holes that drew everything to them. She didn't walk, she glided. The air around her shimmered like heat above a road. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, and her hair felt like wet ropes. For a second, I felt nothing but the cold pressing into my bones. I tried to shout, but my throat closed. Mark grabbed my arm. "Run!" he barked, and the words snapped me out of the paralysis. We ran, but not in a straight line, but stumbling, pushing doors that wouldn't open, jumping over broken tiles. Behind us, there were footsteps, but they were not ours. Faster, heavier, angry. At one point, the corridor split and Parshuram went left while Ram and Mark turned right. I felt my foot catch on a loose tile and I fell. When I looked up, the nurse stood in the doorway at the end of that wing watching us. Her face did not show anger or pain. She simply watched. We burst out of a side door into a courtyard. The night air felt like a slap. The tractor, our only vehicle, was gone from where we had left it. Ram's face went white. He swore he'd parked it under a neem tree by the gate. Now the gate was empty. We ran to the road and found the tractor's headlights in the distance. Engine sputtering. Ram started it and we piled in. As we drove away, the crying sank into the hum of the tractor, like a melody left behind. We didn't speak. The radio was off. Each of us stared at the dark shapes of trees, as if the nurse might appear there too. That night we swore never to talk about what happened. Parshuram kept silent for days. Mark stopped answering his phone. Ram refused to take his tractor near that road for weeks, but small things kept pulling us back to that memory. Some nights I wake up to the image of her black eyes. Some nights I hear a soft crying from the place where my house meets the field. Once I was alone and I heard the faint squeak of a wheelchair, and I felt blood run cold from my fingertips to my toes. I learned things about fear that night. Fear isn't just loud screams. It is the quiet moments between breaths. It is the weight that presses your chest when the world decides to hold its breath with you. It is the sound of something you cannot name getting closer and closer. Weeks later, Parshuram admitted something to me. He had seen a small photograph pinned to a nurse's locker, a woman with kind eyes and a smile. He told me her name. They had called her Nisha. She had vanished long before any of us were born. People whispered that she had been lost during a blackout, trapped between rooms, calling for help no one gave. Maybe she stayed. Maybe she waited. One evening I went back alone, but not to enter, just to stand at the road and listen. The hospital sat like a smudge on the horizon. The tractor's rumble sometimes passed by, but never close. I thought about courage and cowardice, and how thin the line is between them. If you ask me now whether the nurse was angry, I can't say. Anger would be something I could name. What I felt was deeper. She wanted to be seen. She wanted to be heard. Maybe she wanted to be remembered. We tried to burn that memory with time. We told ourselves we were safe, that the world was ordinary again. But every once in a while, Ram would drive past the hospital and jerk the wheel as if someone had reached for him. Parshuram would grow silent and stare at the trees. Mark stopped walking at night. One autumn, when fog rolled in early, I heard the cry again. Not from the hospital, but from a lane near my house. I stepped outside. The fog wrapped around the streetlights. I followed the sound for a moment, but it faded. Then from far down the lane, a single light flickered like a small heartbeat. I felt watched. I felt that same cold press at the base of my skull. We never returned together. Some things break the thread between people, but we are still bound by that night, by the sound of the wheelchair, the sudden slam of a door, the sight of those black eyes. That knot of fear is ours now. Sometimes late at night, when all is quiet, I sit up and listen. If I had to be honest, I would say that I am not afraid of dying. I am afraid of being forgotten. The nurse's cry, broken and patient, makes me think of all the voices that are left unheard. So when you hear a story about an abandoned hospital or a tractor driver who swore he saw a nurse on the road, remember, ghosts and stories are often metaphors, but sometimes they are only memories that hung on to a place like moss on stone. If you ever go back to a place like that, don't go because you think you are brave. Go only if you are ready to hear the things you don't want to hear. And if you do hear it, run. Run like Mark did. Run like Parshuram did. Run like Ram did with his tractor sputtering behind. Because even if the world forgets her, she remembers you.